Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In today's episode, we have some true scary stories to share with you. But there's a special surprise today. We have a new guest who will tell you those stories, and we hope you enjoy listening to him. Your thoughts and feedback mean a lot to us, so please leave your comments below. Thank you.
This happened to me and my friend back in college. So let me give you some background first. To get into our college building, we all needed an ID card. It was pretty useful actually, because we could load money onto it and then swipe it to mark our attendance for classes, and also buy food from the canteen. So one day during break time, when we were all just hanging out and eating, my friend realized he didn't have his ID card with him. Being the typical friend he is, he just grabbed my card without thinking twice and headed off to the canteen to grab something to eat.
Welcome to Big Savings This Week at Grocery Outlet, your extreme value headquarters.
I didn't really mind at the time. Anyway, while he was still at the canteen doing his thing, the break ended, so we all went back to our respective classrooms. But that day I had a free period, and I decided to go with some other friends to hang out in a different classroom that was in another block of the college. We just wanted to sit there and chill for a bit. These classrooms are specifically meant for students who have free lectures. You can use them to study, complete your assignments, or just spend time there instead of wandering around. Now here's the thing. I had absolutely no clue that my friend also had a free period at the same time. Meanwhile, he was walking around campus looking for me because he wanted to give back my ID card. He naturally thought I'd be in my regular classroom where I usually sit, so he headed straight there expecting to find me. When he reached my class and looked inside, he realized I wasn't there at all. I guess he didn't want to keep holding on to my card, so he just went up to the teacher and left it with her. Meanwhile, someone who looked exactly like my friend walked into the classroom and came straight towards me. But the moment I saw him, something felt really off. He just looked strange. I can't explain it properly. It was like he didn't want to be there at all, and he was trying to keep the whole interaction as short as possible. Almost like he was in a rush or uncomfortable. He came up to me and handed over my ID card without saying much. Then he immediately turned around to leave, not even waiting for me to say anything. As soon as he turned his back, I quickly called out to him and asked him to sit down and hang out with us for a bit. But he barely looked back, just mumbled, "I'll be back in sometime," in this flat voice, and then walked away. Now here's what really freaked me out. The way he was acting was so unlike him. When he entered the classroom, he was staring down at the floor the entire time, like he was avoiding eye contact with everyone. And as he was walking through the door, he kept glancing back at it nervously, like something or someone was standing there watching him. This was completely the opposite of his actual personality. My friend is usually this cheerful, energetic guy who's always smiling and making everyone laugh. But this version of him, it was like looking at a completely different person. After all this, maybe just a minute or two later, he came back into the classroom again. But this time it was like he was entering for the very first time. He walked in with his usual big smile on his face, the one I'm so used to seeing. He came over, shook my hand in his typical friendly way, and started telling me how he'd been searching all over campus for me to return my card. He said that since he couldn't find me, he ended up going to my regular classroom and left the card with the teacher there. I just stared at him, completely confused. I told him, "But you literally just gave it to me a minute ago." I even pulled out my ID card from my pocket and showed it to him as proof. He looked genuinely confused and had no memory of coming in earlier at all. Now here's the thing that makes this whole situation impossible to explain. There's no way I could have gone to my original classroom, gotten my card back from the teacher, and returned to the other block before my friend showed up. There's only one pathway that connects those two blocks. So if I had gone to get my card, I would have definitely run into my friend on the way, since he was coming from my original class to the other block at the exact same time. We would have bumped into each other on that path for sure. There's literally no other route. Plus, even when I went back to my original classroom after my free period ended, the teacher didn't say anything to me about my friend dropping off my card, or anything like that. She didn't mention it at all, which she definitely would have if he had actually left it with her. It's like that whole thing never even happened from her perspective. This friend of mine, we've known each other for more than 5 years now. I know him inside and out, and I can always tell when he's lying or making something up. When I told him everything that happened, I remember the look on his face so clearly. He was genuinely confused and shocked. I'm absolutely certain that whatever he's telling me is the truth. He really has no memory of coming in that first time. And honestly, whenever I think back to that day, I get this really weird, unsettling feeling in my gut. It's hard to put into words, but it's like something that looked exactly like him, that moved like him but somehow wasn't actually him, was there in that room with me.
Prepare to think bigger. Gain real-world experience. Start your journey. Are you ready?
Whatever it was, it came there for some reason, to give me that card. I know how crazy this sounds, but I can't shake that feeling. Something was just off about that whole thing, and even now, years later, it still gives me chills when I remember it. I don't believe in supernatural things. I grew up in a family that practiced neo-pagan occultism. That means we followed spiritual beliefs outside of mainstream religions. When I was a teenager, doctors diagnosed me with schizoaffective disorder, which is a mental health condition that can affect how I see and understand things. I'm telling you all this first, so you understand the full picture of what I'm going to share. I know that, because of how I grew up around occult practices, my mental health condition, and my very active imagination, I sometimes have experiences that I can't fully explain. These experiences can feel very real to me, even when they might not be. A long time ago, I made a big change. I started focusing on science, facts, and things that can be proven and tested. This became an important part of how I manage my condition and stay grounded in reality. Since making that change, my life has been much better. happier, and more stable. I want to be clear, I don't believe in supernatural things anymore. When I was young, maybe around 8 years old, my sister and I spent an evening together playing Pokemon, if I remember correctly. We were watching the snow fall outside through the window and drinking warm hot chocolate. We were hanging out in her bedroom that night instead of mine. There was a snowstorm outside. It wasn't dangerous or violent, but it was bitter cold. The solstice held special meaning in our household, so because of this holiday, our father let us stay up late that night as a treat. The house we lived in had 2 floors. It was a regular single-family home with a small, modest backyard. The backyard had a short chain-link fence around it to mark the property line, and bushes and shrubbery grew along the outside of the fence for some privacy. My sister's room was on the 2nd floor, and her window looked out directly over the backyard, giving her a clear view of the yard and fence below. My room was across the hall from hers, and my window faced the opposite direction. It looked out over the front of the house and the street. While we were playing our Pokemon game, and I was thoroughly winning, I should mention, we suddenly heard something moving above us, above our heads, on the roof. Footsteps, clear footsteps that made a particular cracking sound, like someone walking on something that creaked or cracked under their weight with each step. The stride was long, like someone taking big, deliberate steps. But the pace wasn't fast or rushed. It sounded like someone was walking slowly and carefully across the roof. I tried to lighten the mood and made a joke about it, something about Santa Claus being on the roof, though I can't remember the exact words I used. But I do remember very clearly that both of us got really uncomfortable and nervous. Despite my joke, we were genuinely unnerved by the sound. We had the idea to go outside into the cold and look up at the roof to see what was actually making that noise. Then the footsteps sounded again, this time moving in a different direction. They were walking toward the back of the house now, toward where my sister's window overlooked. Our father, who had been downstairs in the living room watching TV, probably something on the Sci-Fi Channel, which he often watched.
You wanna do it your way.
I played 4 Super Bowls and never lost.
It's a dream to come to San Francisco.
It was the experience of a lifetime, being part of a dynasty.
Suddenly came upstairs. He came to check on us and asked if we had heard that sound too. We said yes, we definitely heard it too. I told him that to me, it sounded like hooves, like an animal with hooves walking across the roof. The moment those words left my mouth, my father's whole demeanor changed. He rushed over to my sister's window and quickly pulled the blinds closed. Then he turned to us and gave us very specific, clear instructions, and his tone made it obvious he was dead serious. Do not look outside. Do not go outside. And do not open the windows. He repeated these rules to make sure we understood. Then he moved us both downstairs to sleep in the living room for the rest of the night. Several hours passed and I woke up. The living room was dark and quiet. My sister was still asleep on the couch, but unlike her, I've never been good at sleeping anywhere except my own bed. I just couldn't get comfortable downstairs. So I gathered up my blanket, wrapped it around my shoulders, and quietly headed upstairs to my own bedroom. The second I opened my bedroom door, I could tell something was off. It was bitterly cold in there, much, much colder than it should have been, even for a winter night. The kind of cold that hits you immediately. I noticed that while my father had gone around closing the blinds and curtains in every room of the house, he had somehow forgotten to do mine. My window looked out over a small section of flat roof that extended above the front entrance of the house, kind of like a covering over the front door. I walked slowly toward the window, intending to finish what my father had started and close the blinds myself, but then I stopped in my tracks. There were indentations in the snow, clear marks pressed deep into the snow that covered that section of roof. I stood there frozen, just staring at them. I can't remember the exact number now, but I remember counting them carefully at the time, one by one. They were wide, maybe 6 or 8 inches across, and semicircular, shaped like half circles or crescents. They had a slight oval quality to them too, not perfectly round. What made my stomach drop was their placement. They started at the far outer edge of the roof section, and then moved in a clear path toward my window. In the bushes, something was crouching there. It was crouching down, hiding, but even crouched, its head still poked up above the bushes and the fence. And it was watching me. It knew I was there at the window, and it was staring right back at me. It was wearing a hood? Some kind of covering on its head? But its face was long, too long, unnaturally long. So long and white as the snow around it, bone white. And I, even seeing this thing, so badly wanted to open the window. I wanted to walk outside into the snow, toward it. The urge was so strong. I forced myself to close the blinds. I let the slat snap back into place and stepped away from the window. I sat down next to the radiator, pulled my blanket around me, and I think I cried myself to sleep. I was terrified. That was nearly 30 years ago now. I do not believe in the supernatural. I want to make that clear again. But I do love a good spooky story, a good piece of horror fiction. It's actually become part of how I manage my condition, part of my management strategy. As crazy as it sounds, the things I experienced when I was a child, before I understood my diagnosis or what was happening to me, are often more bizarre and disturbing than modern creepypasta stories and internet horror that people share online. The things my mind created were stranger than fiction. But horror stories, horror movies, scary tales, they've always been soothing to me in a weird way. Comforting even. They became a way of dealing with the nightmares I had, a way of processing the hallucinations and the bad memories from my childhood.
Working across teams is tough, but Asana helps you handle it. Asana AI can spot roadblocks and assign work to keep everything on track. That's how work gets handled. Visit us at asana.com.
I used to work the night shift at a crematory and funeral home. One night, probably around 2 or 3 in the morning, I was sitting in the office when I suddenly heard the door beeper go off. My heart immediately started racing because I knew for a fact that all the doors were locked. I had locked them myself earlier, I got up and checked the front door of the funeral home first. Still locked, deadbolt in place. Then I went downstairs to check the basement door, also locked tight. These were the only two doors in the building that were connected to the beeper system. I walked around the entire building, turning on every light, looking in every room and closet. Nothing. No one was there except me. The whole thing freaked me out so badly. I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe someone had somehow slipped in without me noticing and was hiding somewhere in the building. I spent the rest of my shift on edge, jumping at every little sound. To this day, I have no idea what triggered that beeper. Maybe it was just a glitch or something. Another time, something similar happened. In the basement where I worked, there was a window that looked out to the back parking lot. That's where we employees parked our cars and where they brought in the bodies. Right outside, there was a light on the corner of the covered area where the bodies were delivered. This light shined directly into my office window. One night, I was sitting at my desk when I saw a shadow on the wall across from the window. It was the shadow of a person walking in front of that outside light. I could see it clearly moving across my office wall. My stomach dropped. I immediately got up and looked out the window, but there was no one there. The parking lot was completely empty. I checked the back door, still locked. I even went outside with a flashlight and walked around the whole area. There was nobody out there. But I know what I saw. That shadow was definitely the shape of a person walking past that light. It gave me chills because there was no explanation for it. I couldn't figure out where that shadow came from if no one was actually out there. I know I probably should have called the police, but I didn't call them for either of these incidents. I just locked myself inside and tried to stay calm. And one more story. This one didn't happen to me, but to my coworker. One morning, he came in for his shift and found a car parked right up against the back door. Like, literally pressed up against it. The driver's door was wide open. At first, my coworker thought maybe someone had died inside the car. He didn't even walk up close to check it out. He just immediately called the police. When the cops showed up, they told him what had happened. Apparently, some guy had stolen the car and was being chased by police. He drove it to the back of our funeral home and basically crashed it right into the back door, then ran away on foot.
I'm a 19-year-old girl and I go to university. So this semester, I noticed that someone had been signing the attendance sheet for me on days when I was actually there. The thing is, I didn't ask anyone to do this, and I barely knew anyone in my class. It made me really uncomfortable because I felt like someone was watching me without me knowing. About a week after I noticed this, a guy who usually sits in the front row turned around and started talking to me. At first, he seemed pretty friendly and normal. We talked a bit about the class and stuff. Then after a few conversations, he asked if he could have my phone number. He said he needed help with some of the classwork and assignments. I thought maybe he was just being nice and genuinely needed help, so I didn't think too much about it and just gave him my number. After I gave him my number, things got really weird really fast. He started absolutely flooding my phone with messages, stickers, and videos, especially during class time, like nonstop notifications. And here's the creepy part. Whenever I would read his messages but not reply right away, he would literally turn around in his seat to check if I was on my phone. He was basically monitoring me to see if I was ignoring him or actually busy. He also kept obsessively checking when I was last online. I could tell because he would give me these long stares and try to catch my eye whenever my last seen status updated. But the strangest and most unsettling thing was what he did with my profile pictures. I had some normal selfies with my friends as my display pictures. Nothing special. He would open them and just stare, like I could see he was viewing them for minutes at a time, but he wouldn't type anything. I tried telling him multiple times that I really needed to focus on the lectures and couldn't keep chatting. But honestly, it didn't make any difference. He just completely ignored what I said and kept spamming me with messages like I hadn't said anything at all. Then he started doing something that made my skin crawl. He would deliberately angle his phone screen in my direction so that I could clearly see everything he was doing on it. And what I saw was disturbing. He was constantly on our chat, obsessively scrolling up and down through our conversation history, checking my profile, refreshing to see if I was online. Things got even worse when he started asking me for hugs out of nowhere. A couple of days ago was my final class of the year with him, and that's when I figured out something that had been bothering me since the beginning of the semester. I happened to glance at the attendance sheet on the teacher's desk, and I noticed something strange. The color of the pen ink that was used to check off his name was the exact same shade as the ink that had been used to mark my attendance all those times. It suddenly all made sense. He was the one doing it. He had been signing me in on the attendance sheet from the very start, before he even introduced himself to me. It wasn't a coincidence or someone trying to be helpful. He had been watching me and tracking me this whole time. So after seeing the matching pen ink, I put two and two together, and I'm pretty convinced it was him all along who was marking my attendance without asking me. I actually worked up the courage to talk to him about it directly, and he completely denies it was him. But honestly, if he's actually telling the truth about that, then this whole situation becomes even more bizarre and unsettling. Because that would mean there's possibly someone else watching me that I don't even know about. One thing I've noticed is that all of his weird stalkerish behavior only happens during our class hours. He doesn't try to message me late at night or show up at places outside of university or anything like that. It's contained to when we're in class together. So part of me is wondering, am I overreacting here? Am I being unnecessarily creeped out and paranoid about this whole thing? The reason I'm so anxious and on edge about this is because I went through something similar before. At my previous job, I had someone who would follow me around. And that whole experience really traumatized me. And ever since then, I've been super alert and maybe overly cautious about anyone who shows even slightly obsessive behavior toward me. So now I keep second-guessing myself with this guy. Part of me wonders, what if he's just really socially awkward and has no idea that what he's doing is inappropriate and creepy? What if he genuinely thinks this is normal behavior and he's just bad at reading social cues? Maybe if I just ignore it and give it some time, he'll get bored or realize I'm not interested and he'll eventually stop on his own. But here's the major problem that's stressing me out. He's going to be in the exact same class as me next year too. Our programs overlap and it's a required course, so there's no way for me to avoid him. I'm basically stuck dealing with this situation for at least another whole semester, maybe longer. I just really want to know if what I'm feeling is valid, and if this is actually concerning behavior that I should do something about, or if I'm just reading way too much into things. So there was this wooded area near my primary school. It wasn't really properly wooded, more like scrubby bushes, and these old metal fences running along the edges. Maybe a 5-minute walk to cut through, nothing massive. But the neighborhood around it was pretty rough, bit dodgy if I'm honest. Anyway, when I started secondary school, I'd walk through there as a shortcut to pick up my younger siblings from their primary school. It saved me like 10 minutes compared to going the long way around the streets. My mom and dad were pretty clear about it. They told me not to go through that area, as there were rumors going around that some really bad things had happened there, which was obviously scary. And my mates told me they'd seen this really creepy looking bloke just hanging about near the entrance one time, which didn't help. I was quite a cautious kid anyway, so even on days when I was running really late to pick up my siblings, I'd still be super hesitant about using that shortcut. Like I'd stand there debating whether to risk it or just take the long way. Most of the time I'd just go the safe route. I never actually had anything properly bad happen to me there, to be fair. Except maybe this one incident. So anyway, this particular day, I'm walking past the entrance on my way to get my little brother and sister from school. So I'm walking along, and I notice one of the girls from my high school sort of lingering around near the entrance to that wooded area. She went to the same primary school as me too, so I definitely recognized her face. She was just standing, like she was waiting for someone, or maybe trying to work up the courage to go through by herself. Let's call her JoJo, mainly because she had this really long blonde ponytail that was quite distinctive. The second she spots me walking towards her, she comes straight over, almost rushing up to me. She asks me if I'd please walk through there with her. She explains that she needs to pick up her little siblings from primary school, and she's already running quite late, so she really needs to use the shortcut instead of going all the way around. You could tell she absolutely didn't want to go through that place alone, but she was also properly panicking about the time and didn't want to be even later. But I knew straight away she was lying, as something just didn't add up. So I said to her, "Hold on. You're going to pick up your siblings from the exact same primary school I'm heading to right now, and I know for a fact we're not late. I left home early on purpose, and we're literally both going to the same place." I wasn't even sure if she actually had younger siblings at that school, or if she was the one who picked them up normally. I'd never seen her doing the school run before. And then JoJo comes out with some excuse that sounded like total rubbish. I honestly can't remember the exact words she used now, but I remember thinking it was such obvious nonsense. It just made me stand there looking at her with this really skeptical expression. Anyway, she's getting really insistent about it, in this weird pushy way that was making me uneasy. But being the socially awkward teenager I was back then, I really didn't want to keep standing there to making excuses. So I just gave in and said, "Fine, let's go." We start walking through the wooded area together, and after about a minute or two, we suddenly hear this voice going, "Hey, can anyone help me?" But something about this voice just felt really off to me. The croakiness sounded sort of forced, like someone was trying too hard to sound weak or hurt. JoJo turns to me and goes, "Should we go and check it out?" And I'm just stood there thinking this is all kinds of wrong. I looked at her and she had this smile on her face. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. We just stood there for a bit, listening to whoever it was saying "help me" over and over again. The voice kept repeating it in that same weird way. Then I started second-guessing myself. Like, what if there actually was someone who genuinely needed help? What if they were really desperate and hurt? And here I was just ignoring them because I was being paranoid. I'd feel terrible if something bad happened because I didn't check. So eventually I said, "You know what? Should we just go and have a quick look?" I'm feeling stupidly brave today. even though every instinct was telling me this was a bad idea. The smile on JoJo's face just disappeared completely. She stared at me for a second, like she was processing what I'd just said, and for the entire rest of the walk through that shortcut, she kept rushing me along, saying things like, "Come on, hurry up, and we need to go faster." She also kept glancing behind her every few seconds, like she was really nervous about something following us or watching us. It was honestly quite unsettling. Anyway, we eventually got through, and I picked up my little siblings from school and just went straight home. I honestly can't remember if JoJo actually went into the school building to collect any siblings, if she even had any at that school, or where she disappeared to after we got out of that area. The whole thing was just bizarre. I wanted to ask if anyone else has ever had a similar weird experience like this, or if anyone has any idea what the hell that could have been about. And it's been bothering me ever since, to be honest. She could be a bit shady and weird at times, but she wasn't like a horrible person or anything. Or maybe the whole thing would have just been some stupid prank where someone jumps out from behind a bush and to scare us. I've definitely considered that possibility, but if it was just meant to be a harmless prank, then why did she suddenly get all serious and tense the moment I suggested we actually go and investigate? And why did she spend the rest of the walk constantly telling me to hurry up and walk faster while nervously looking over her shoulder? That doesn't really fit with it being just a silly joke, does it? The whole thing just doesn't add up in my head. If anyone reading this has any theories or answers about what this situation could have actually been, I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know.
Creativity is not something I wait for. I am Antoni Sendra, a filmmaker. I'm always
So this happened to me about 3 years ago, but I changed the names to keep everyone anonymous. I had just moved really far from home for college, like 2 states away. I wanted to get out and experience something new. But honestly, those first couple months were rough. I didn't know anyone, and I felt pretty lonely most of the time. Anyway, one day, I was just sitting on the bus, minding my own business, and this girl sat down near me. We started talking about something random. I think it was about one of our professors, or maybe the weather. I don't even remember. She seemed pretty cool and easy to talk to. We chatted for a bit until one of us had to get off. I didn't really think much of it at the time, just a nice conversation with a stranger. After that, I'd see her around campus every now and then. We'd wave or say hi when we passed each other. It was kind of nice to have at least one familiar face at school. So one of these days I saw her on the bus again, but this time she had a new girl with her. At first I thought this girl was just extremely shy or something. She was really quiet, barely said anything to me at all. I just assumed she was the more introverted one out of the two. Some people are just like that. Anyway, as I was getting ready to leave the bus that day, the first girl I met, I'll call her Trish so this doesn't get confusing, she suddenly grabbed my arm. I was a little surprised, but then she pointed at this sticker I had on my laptop bag. She asked me if it was from this anime she'd been watching. I told her yeah, it was, and honestly she got so excited. Like immediately her whole face lit up, and she started talking really fast about the show. Then Trish told me I should totally come to the anime club with her and the other girl. We'll call her Penny. She said they meet every week and it's a really chill group. I was kind of caught off guard, but it seemed like it could be fun, and I figured why not. And honestly, I ended up really liking the friend group she introduced me to. But here's the thing. I noticed that Penny was actually way more extroverted at anime club than I had ever seen her before. Like she was talking and laughing with everyone. completely different from how quiet and reserved she'd been on the bus. So this became our routine for the next couple of months. I'd meet up with Trish and Penny. We'd grab dinner together, usually at this cheap Thai place near campus, and then we'd all head to Anime Club. There were a couple of members I clicked with right away, and one of them just happened to be this guy I started developing feelings for. Nothing serious yet. I thought he was cute, and we had good conversations. But then after a while, maybe 2 or 3 months in, I started noticing that Penny was getting quieter again. Not just with me, but in general. She wasn't as talkative at club meetings anymore. I started seeing her less and less around campus and on the bus. I thought maybe she was just busy with classes or something. Then the dinner started being just me and some of the other friends from Anime Club. Penny just stopped showing up. And eventually, she left the group altogether. I literally have not seen her since that time. But I kind of just moved on and figured she had her reasons. Well, fast forward a few years later. I was hanging out with Trish one day, and somehow the topic of Penny came up. I don't remember exactly how we got there, but I ended up asking Trish about how quiet Penny was that first time we all met on the bus. I was curious because she'd been so different at Anime Club. Trish kind of laughed and said, "Oh yeah, she was just really uncomfortable that day." This caught me completely off guard. I asked her what she meant by that. Like uncomfortable how? And then Trish just casually dropped this bomb. "Oh, Penny was stalking you, so I didn't really feel comfortable being around you." Wait, what do you mean Penny was stalking me? I asked. "You didn't find it odd that you guys kept running into each other so much? Like all the time?" "What do you mean?" Then Trish said something that made it instantly so much worse. "Penny tracked you for weeks to figure out what your bus schedule was. She would actually leave her classes early, just so she could get to the bus stop in time to watch you get off the bus. Every single time." I felt sick to my stomach. I just stared at Trish, trying to process what she was telling me.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can it keep me warm when I'm cold?
Wait, no, I'm always hot.
Sleep Number does that.
This whole time I thought these were just random encounters, normal college stuff. But it wasn't random at all. "But she never wanted to disturb you before class, so she wouldn't say anything to you. She would just stand there and look at you. She would also get to her classes super early, so she could make sure she was on the same bus as you. You really never noticed that she sometimes didn't actually get off the bus with you?" No, I hadn't noticed. Why would I? I thought we just happened to go to the same school and take the same bus sometimes. That's what normal people do. But Trish was saying all of this like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. She kept laughing between sentences, like she was telling me about some silly prank, and not the fact that someone had been literally stalking me for months. I couldn't understand why she thought this was so amusing. I just sat there feeling more and more horrified while she giggled about it. But you can imagine the absolute horror I felt in that moment, learning all of this. The person I thought was one of my closest friends, someone I trusted and spent so much time with, had actually been obsessed with me this entire time. Like obsessively watching me, tracking my schedule, following me around campus. The only thing that broke her obsession was me showing interest in that guy from Anime Club. That's when she suddenly disappeared from my life. I still think about her sometimes, honestly. I still miss her in a way, because when we were friends, she really was a good friend to me. But now it's so hard for all of that not to feel tainted. Like, were any of those moments genuine? Or was it all just part of this obsession? I can't look back on any of our friendship the same way anymore, and that really sucks. It's like I lost a friend twice. Once when she left, and again when I found out the truth about why she was really there in the first place.
My name's Mark. I've been driving trucks for over 20 years, and I'm not the kind of guy who scares easy. I follow the rules, I mind my business, and I don't pull over unless there's a real reason. I don't stop because someone waves, and I don't open my door because someone says my rig looks funny. This happened to me in Arizona in 2015, right around dusk, and it's the reason I don't follow anyone off-route anymore. Out here, being polite can cost you. That's why I noticed the other semi when it eased up alongside me instead of blowing past. He paced me for a bit, dropped back, then pulled up again. Clearly, he wanted to be seen without making it obvious. My CB crackled. "Hey, driver, you got a minute? I think your trailer lights are acting weird." His voice was friendly and calm, the kind of tone that makes you lower your guard. I checked my dash and there were no alerts. Looked in the mirror and everything looked normal. I'd walked the trailer at my last stop, checked connections, checked the seal. Nothing was off. "You sure you got the right truck?" I asked. "Yeah, I'm right behind you. It's serious. I'd want someone to tell me." That line hit the exact spot it was meant to. It turns the decision into a moral one. Ignore him, and you're the guy who didn't care. "I'm not stopping on the shoulder," I said. "I wouldn't either," he replied instantly. "That's why I'm saying follow me to the next exit. There's a wide shoulder. Safer than here. Follow me." And then he overtook me. That's when my instincts first leaned forward. Normally I would have shut it down right there, but dusk does funny things to judgment. You're still half in routine mode, thinking about miles instead of risk. I told myself, next exit, lights, public space. If it feels wrong, I leave. The exit came up fast, and it wasn't one of the usual ones. There were no bright signs or gas logo glowing from a mile away. Just a dark off-ramp and reflectors. He took it without hesitation. I followed. At the bottom of the ramp, I expected pavement. Instead, my headlights hit dirt, a narrow road that didn't look built for semis. "You seeing this?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, "just a little ways. Plenty of room to pull off." The way he said it told me he already knew where that room was. We rolled deeper, and the darkness outside my beams felt heavier and heavier. There were no houses, no lights, just miles of desert. Then I saw two vehicles parked off to the side. One looked like an SUV, the other maybe a pickup. Both dark, both positioned, not abandoned. No hazards, no doors open, no movement. That's when irritation replaced doubt, mostly at myself for getting this far. The other truck slowed and pulled into a wider patch of dirt ahead, stopping in a way that didn't make sense. "Too far in. Pull up behind me," he said. "I'll show you." I didn't. I stopped short, keeping my tractor pointed back toward the road. Wheels straight, space in front of me. An exit I didn't have to explain. The SUV was turned toward us like it could swing out and block the road with one move. The other driver's door opened. He climbed down and started walking toward my cab. I couldn't see his hands. He stopped just outside my headlights. His cap was hiding most of his face. "What's wrong with the lights?" I asked through a barely cracked window. He didn't answer. "You gotta pop the door," he said, like it was the obvious next step. Then the pickup's door opened and shut once, like a signal.
Granger knows that if you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, you go to great lengths, and sometimes...
That's when everything lined up. 2 vehicles, one to box me in, one to approach, the semi to keep me cooperative, a 3-person setup, maybe more. I didn't argue, didn't escalate. That turned situations into challenges. I keyed the CB and spoke loud like someone was already listening. Unit 12, confirm my location. I'm off route at an unmarked turnout. Got another driver claiming equipment issue. It wasn't real dispatch language, but it sounded official enough. Then I laid on the air horn. A long, ugly scream that turned the dirt road into noise. The sound bounced off trailers and empty space, announcing that this wasn't quiet anymore. The man took a couple of steps back. I kept the horn going, hit my high beams, and dropped into reverse. Tires crunched grit. For a second, I worried I'd bogged down. That's when the pickup truck rolled forward, just half a length. Just enough to close space if I'd been dumb enough to pull in behind him. That move told me everything. I backed until my trailer straightened, then turned hard toward the ramp, scraping something solid on the way out. As I cleared the turnout, the man slapped my trailer hard enough to echo. Then I was back on pavement, back on the highway, back where rules apply. My hands were shaking. I drove for miles checking mirrors, waiting for headlights to appear. At the next fuel stop, bright, busy, cameras everywhere, I walked my trailer again. Lights, doors, seal. The seal tag wasn't broken, but it was bent. Twisted, like someone had tested it before deciding not to finish the job. I know it was straight when I left my last stop. I always check. So that meant someone was already at my seal while he was talking to me. He didn't notice me. He picked me. I finished the run, but didn't make a report that would go nowhere. I just didn't let helpful voices pull me off route anymore. Out in the desert at dusk, some exits aren't really exits, and some drivers already know which one they want you to take. I'm going to tell this the same way I wrote it up for the company afterward. Dates, times, route numbers, who said what. That's how I keep it from turning into something worse in my head. Northern California, night, 2021. I was mid-run with a little over 4 hours left on my clock. Light rain, nothing unusual. The load was simple on paper. Drop and hook, in and out, keep the logs clean. I've been a company driver for a long time, so I know the drill. You follow instructions, you don't freelance decisions, you don't improvise. I remember the exact moment things went wrong. I was cruising the interstate when my GPS route bent away from the highway. I hadn't touched anything. I looked down and thought, that's not right. My phone rang through the cab speaker. "Hey, we need you to reroute for a pickup before your drop," dispatch said. "It's a temp yard. No sign, just a gate." That alone was odd. Our company doesn't do no sign. Everything has a name, a code, paperwork. But dispatch changes plans all the time, so I didn't push back right away. I asked what I always ask. "What's the address?" There was a short pause, like someone scrolling. "I'll text it," he said. The text wasn't a real address. It was a set of directions, highway number, county road, then a private road near a fence line. It even had coordinates, which we almost never get unless something is way out in the middle of nowhere. I tried plugging it in. My GPS didn't know what to do with it. It kept dropping a pin in empty space and rerouting me in loops. I called dispatch back. "My GPS can't pull this up," I said. "Can you send a yard name or an address?" "It's temporary," the voice said. "No sign, just a gate. You'll see it." So I took the off-ramp they told me to take. At first, nothing felt wrong. 2-lane road, trees, a few driveways, one of those places you just stay alert for deer. Then the houses stopped. The road narrowed. The shoulders dropped into ditches. The only light was my own headlights. I passed long stretches of fencing and the occasional reflective marker nailed to a post, like breadcrumbs with no context. My GPS kept trying to correct me, recalculating over and over like it couldn't admit it was lost. I called dispatch again, partly to cover myself. I'm on County Road now, I said. There's nothing out here. That's it, the voice replied immediately. You'll see a private road entrance. Go in. I rounded a bend and my headlights hit a sign. Private road, no trespassing. Beyond it was a gravel entrance cutting into the trees. No lights, no buildings, just darkness. I slowed to a crawl. Dispatch, I said, this is marked no trespassing. That's the entrance, they replied. The signage is old. You're behind schedule. There it was, pressure. I sat there with my hazards on, rain ticking against the windshield, feeling that stupid compliance itch. You don't want to write up. You don't want to be the guy who refused instructions. That's when I noticed another semi ahead on the shoulder, hazards flashing. The driver was standing outside, waving. Truckers don't flag each other down for no reason, especially not out there. I eased up and cracked my window. You headed to that temp yard? He asked. I hadn't answered yet, and he nodded like he already knew. They sent you there too, he said. I felt that tight feeling right in the chest. What do you mean too? I asked. He looked toward the private road. Guy took that road last month, he said. Same story. Dispatch reroute. He never made the pickup. I almost laughed. At the moment, it sounded unreal. They found his truck later, he added. Empty, doors closed like somebody drove it there and walked away. I asked about dispatch. He shrugged. Company said there was no record, but drivers talk. That's when he dropped the line I couldn't forget. If you go in there, don't stop deep, don't get boxed in, and don't get out for anybody. I thanked him and pulled forward just enough to look compliant. Then I called dispatch again. This time I wasn't polite. I need your employee ID, I said, and the load number. Silence, then. We don't have time for this, the voice said. Same calm tone. You're behind schedule. What terminal are you calling from? I asked. Another pause. Just go in. That was it. No dispatcher dodges that question. I rolled toward the entrance slowly. My headlights caught a chain stretched across the road. Not rusty. Fresh, and a clean padlock hanging from it. Beyond the chain, deeper in the trees, I saw a weak glow, like a dashboard lit inside a vehicle with its headlights off. Someone sitting there, waiting. I stopped and put the truck in reverse. That weak glow moved. Then the vehicle's headlights snapped on, full beams aimed straight at my cab. That wasn't an accident. That was a signal. I kept backing up, careful and calm, until I found another entrance in the trees, wide enough for the trailer to enter. I turned and drove until I found a truck stop with lights, cameras, and people. The next morning, my company told me there had been no reroute, no temp yard, no dispatch instruction. My call log showed I'd called the dispatch number multiple times. When I asked for the recordings, they told me they couldn't retrieve them. Later that day, I got a text from an unknown number. Next time, don't waste our time. And that was the confirmation I needed. The scariest part was realizing someone knew exactly how to sound official long enough to make a professional driver drive himself into the wrong place.
Welcome to Big Savings this week at Grocery Outlet, your extreme value headquarters. Right now, get 1 dozen grade A large eggs for only 99 cents. Stock up on this easy source of protein, perfect for breakfast.
My name's Sarah. I drive solo over the road, and I was running through Wyoming in the winter of 2022 when this happened. It was around 3 in the morning at a rest area I'd stopped at dozens of times before. The wind was throwing snow at my rig like it was trying to get inside. My curtains were half drawn, the way I always leave them, enough to block interior light, enough to keep a thin slice of visibility. Boots lined up by the seat, keys in the same cup holder they always go in. Phone charging. Pepper spray clipped to the side pocket, same as gloves or wipes. I was doing what solo drivers do when weather turns bad, waiting it out and staying unnoticed. Then I heard the first crunch of footsteps in snow right beside my passenger side. It was close enough that the sound came through the floor, through the frame of the truck. At 3 a.m., nobody's out there by accident. I didn't sit up fast or grab the curtain. I stayed still and listened. the way you do when you're trying to decide if a sound fits the environment or doesn't. Rest areas have normal noises. Doors slamming, boots heading toward bathrooms, tires hissing on slush. The footsteps didn't move toward the bathrooms. They didn't head for another vehicle. They traced a short line along my passenger side, then stopped. I picked up my phone, dimmed the screen, and pulled up the dashcam app. The front camera was useless in the storm, just gray snow and glare, but audio mattered. Proof mattered. I didn't touch the curtain. Another crunch, closer, then a soft metallic click. My passenger door handle. Light pressure, like someone checking without committing. Then again, harder. Just enough to say, I'm trying now. I didn't speak. Talking gives away more than silence. I flicked the interior light on and off once. Quick, just enough to signal I was awake. The handle stopped. For a second, I thought that might be it. Then the footsteps moved again, sliding along the side of my cab. They were circling it. I pictured someone staying in my blind spots, using the truck as cover. I flashed my headlights, high beams, then back down. The lot washed white. Snowbanks, picnic tables, the bathroom building, and then went dark again. The footsteps stopped immediately. I checked my mirrors. Nothing moving away, just snow. That bothered me more than hearing someone leave, because it meant they hadn't gone anywhere obvious. I stayed still, listening. Wind, snow, my own engine. Then I heard it again, from a different angle. A step on the driver's side running board. The cab moved a little. That wasn't wind. I raised my phone and started recording. A shadow filled the thin gap where the curtain didn't meet the door frame. Then a flat slap hit the glass, right where my head would have been if I'd leaned forward. I saw that as a message and decided to answer, so I laid on the horn. A full, sustained blast that tore through the rest area. At the same time, I turned on the headlights. The cab came alive when the gauges lit. I dropped it into gear and rolled forward carefully. As my headlights swept past the snowbank near my driver's side, I caught it for half a second. A crouched shape low to the ground, close enough to grab the door again if I'd hesitated. Then it vanished behind the blowing snow. I didn't look back and didn't circle. I drove to the nearest large truck stop with full lighting and cameras that meant something. When I parked, I watched my mirrors for hours. Thankfully, nothing followed. Inside, I acted normal on purpose. Bought coffee, nodded at another driver, didn't tell the cashier a story that would turn me into the shaken one. Back at my truck, reviewing the dash cam, the audio caught everything. The handle test, the second try, the slap. The video showed nothing but snow and light. Storms erase things. Tracks, shapes, direction. They turn the world into a blank page where someone can stand inches from you and disappear. After that night, I stopped parking at rest areas during storms if I had any choice. I'd rather sit in a crowded lot under harsh lights than wait alone in a whiteout pretending quiet means safe. Because sometimes quiet just means someone is close enough to listen and patient enough to wait. That was Tennessee, 2007. I was running regional nights, same routes, same stops, same everything. When you drive the same lanes long enough, places stop feeling like destinations and start feeling like furniture. That night, rain was coming down hard. It wasn't a drizzle, real sheets that blur depth and make the road feel smaller. The kind that turns a rest stop into a box, with the dark corners pushed in close. I pulled into a remote rest area off a 2-lane stretch.
Sink into savings on everything that reclines, powers up, and helps you unwind during the Rest and Relax sale at Raymore.
Not a big truck stop, just a low building with vending machines, a few parking spots, and yellowish lights that flickered like they were tired. 3 other rigs were parked wide, engines off, curtains drawn. I was exhausted, but not careless. I'm a locked doors guy. Cab organized, nothing loose. Curtain cracked to see the lot through the mirror. I was finishing my log when movement slid through that narrow slice of view. A woman stepped into the light. At first, I assumed she came from the bathroom building. That's what my brain wanted. But she wasn't walking from that direction. She came from the darker side of the lot, where the light faded and rain turned everything into streaks. She walked straight to my truck. I did not expect that. She stopped right under my driver window, so close that I couldn't see her whole body without leaning forward, and leaning forward meant putting my face near the glass. She knocked. I stayed still, watching through rain distortion. Faces look strange under mirrors in heavy rain. She knocked again. I cracked the curtain a little more, trying to see her hands. I couldn't. The mirror angle and rain made sure of that. "Hey," she called. "I'm sorry, can you help me?" Her voice sounded normal, like customer service normal. My phone died. My ride left. I just need to call someone. I waited a beat, then used my driver voice, the one that sounds firm without sounding aggressive. "Ma'am, step back toward the light." She didn't move. "I need to see your hands." She looked at me like the request confused her. "I'm not gonna hurt you," she said. That line always sticks out. People who mean no harm don't usually say it out loud. "Just crack it," she added, "just an inch." She stayed planted exactly where visibility was worst, where rain and mirror warped her face and hid her hands. I noticed then that she wasn't shaking. She was wet, sure. Hair stuck to her cheeks, but her posture was relaxed. Behind her, something moved. At first, it was barely anything. Movement that didn't match the rain. The rain fell straight. This moved sideways, low, near the edge of the lot. Then it was gone. I reached for my phone. Her eyes dropped instantly to my hands. That's when I realized she was tracking my movements the whole time. "I can call for you," I said. "I'll call the sheriff." "No," she said quickly. "Please, just open the window a little. I don't want to make a scene." I hadn't mentioned a scene. She had. I looked past her again. The rain made distance hard to judge, but I could see a parked car farther out. Lights off. And then my brain, tired, social, stupid, decided to compromise. Just crack the window, 1 inch. See what she does. That was the second I should have rolled out. I hit the switch and lowered the window enough to make a thin gap. Doors stayed locked. My shoulder stayed against the door. Rain rushed in immediately. "Thank you," she said, and her voice changed. Less pleading, more satisfied. "Step back," I started. Her hand shot up fast, reaching for the gap, like she meant to grab the edge and pull. At the same moment, the rain behind her moved again. This time it didn't vanish. A second figure stepped into the light behind her. Bigger, with a hood up and face low. The woman dropped the act completely. "Just give me what you got." I slammed the window up. It squealed. Her fingers smacked the glass and slid off, leaving a wet streak. The second figure started running toward me. I yanked the air horn. The sound tore through the rest stop and the woman got off the truck's steps. I threw the truck into gear and rolled out as fast as I could. In my mirror, I saw the second figure melt back into the direction of the parked car. The woman stayed under the light, watching me leave like she'd just clocked out. I drove to the nearest big truck stop and did everything I could. I told the clerk, I told other drivers. I reported it, but it was 2007. No dash cam, no plate. Woman in the rain isn't a description. Weeks later, it was already becoming one of those stories people half believe. Then, one night at a different lot, I saw her again, or someone who moved exactly like her. Same stance, same distance from a driver window, same way of choosing the spot where mirrors distort faces and hide hands. She knocked on another truck. I saw the driver inside hesitate, having the same argument I'd had. Don't be rude, don't overreact. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I got back in my cab, yanked the air horn, and left. In the mirror, I saw the other driver leaving behind me. He got the message. What I learned that night wasn't just, don't help strangers. It was this. Some people don't ask for help because they need it. They ask because they know it opens doors. I've slept in more parking lots than I can count. I've eaten meals with my steering wheel pressed against my gut. I've watched enough sunrises through dirty glass that they stopped feeling special a long time ago. So no, truck stop bathrooms don't scare me. They annoy me. They smell bad. They make me wish I'd planned my stops better. But fear, not usually. That changed in Nevada in 2016. It was one of those desert truck stops where the building looks dropped into the middle of nowhere on purpose. Flat land, no trees, just scrub, wind, and a few lights fighting the dark. I pulled in late, midnight or later. When you own your truck, time blurs like that. I wasn't exhausted in a dramatic way, just worn down. The kind of tired that makes your movements slower and your voice quieter. I grabbed a coffee that tasted burned and headed for the men's room because, at my age, that's not optional anymore. The bathroom was exactly what you'd see in the movies. Flickering fluorescent lights. A smell that tried to be bleach and failed. 2 sinks, 1 usable. A line of stalls with thin metal doors that always feel slightly warped, like they've seen things. I was opening a stall when I heard it. Breathing. Not general bathroom noise. Not someone washing their hands or clearing their throat. It was slow breathing coming from the last stall at the far end. I stopped and listened. The sound was close, like whoever it was had their face near the door. I looked down the row. The stall door was closed. The latch was turned. Red strip visible. Occupied. I did what people do when they want to keep things normal. I cleared my throat, loud enough to announce myself. The breathing continued. I used the nearest stall and got it done fast. When I stepped out, I looked again toward the far stall. I was curious, and you know that's a hard thing to shut off. When I looked, I noticed there were no feet. You always see something under a stall door. Boots, sneakers, the edge of a shoe, sometimes even knees. This time there was nothing. The floor was clear, but the breathing was still there. My brain went to work immediately, trying to make it harmless. Maybe he's standing on the toilet seat. That idea only comes to you if you've been on the road long enough to know people will do strange things for reasons that don't make sense. I stepped a little closer. Not bravely, just enough to be sure. The latch was still locked. I leaned a little, checking the gap again. Nothing. Then the breathing stopped, like it reacted to me stopping. I straightened up and forced a little laugh, the kind you use when you want to pretend you're not bothered. "Everything all right?" I called out, and I didn't get an answer. I backed away toward the sinks and turned on the faucet. The water noise helped. It made the room feel more ordinary. I watched everything through the mirror so I didn't have to turn my back. The stall stayed closed. Then I heard a click, the exact sound of a latch turning. I watched the mirror as the stall door moved, slowly. It swung open like someone pushed it with intention. No one stepped out. The inside of the stall looked darker than it should have, like the light didn't quite reach it. And then the breathing started again. That was enough. I didn't check. I didn't call out again. I didn't try to be brave. I shut off the water, wiped my hands on my jeans, and walked out like I belonged somewhere else. I went straight to my truck and locked the doors. That's when the explanations came. Broken latch, bad angle, draft, someone messing around. I almost bought it. Then I thought about the breathing. It didn't sound like someone hiding. It sounded like someone waiting. Waiting for me to step closer. Waiting for me to bend down and look. Waiting for curiosity to do what it always does. I moved my truck closer to other rigs and slept there. I never told anyone at the stop. I didn't go back with backup. I didn't stand outside the restroom warning strangers. I just left. And now, years later, when I hear something in a truck stop bathroom that doesn't fit, I don't investigate. I don't need to know. Once you've seen a stall door open on its own while the breathing is still inside, logic stops helping. All it does is make you imagine what would have happened if you'd taken one more step. If you're still thinking about how close these stories came to disaster, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss the next nightmare, and let me know which story got under your skin. And if isolation on the road felt uncomfortable, click now to watch 4 disturbing Blizzard horror stories. Because when the weather turns hostile, help doesn't always make it in time. Flipping stuff on Facebook Marketplace has kind of been my thing for a while. Just normal stuff like sneakers and video games. Quick trades, easy cash. I'd built up a system. Meet in a parking lot, shake hands, both of us leave with what we wanted. Done. That's why when I saw a matte black hybrid bike listed for trade in Richmond last summer, I jumped on it. The guy's profile showed a dog with a red bandana and a handful of 5-star reviews that all said the same thing. Smooth deal. He wanted an Xbox or PlayStation. I had a Series S sitting around collecting dust. Perfect. We messaged. He responded fast. Said the bike was in his shed out back, that I could just pull into the driveway. I pushed for neutral ground like Target or a grocery lot, but he brushed it off. I'm on foot today. Easier if you just pull in. I broke my own rule. His house was in one of those older Richmond neighborhoods where every porch looks like it's seen a cookout and every driveway looks too narrow for modern cars. When I pulled up, he came out wearing a cap and gym shorts, waving like we already knew each other. "Bike's out back in the shed," he said, pointing toward the driveway. I looked. It was tight, cracked concrete, leading past the house toward a fence and an alley. From the street, I couldn't see a shed, just shadows and a gate latch. "I'll just park here," I said.
Working across teams is tough, but Asana helps you handle it. That's because Asana is where humans and AI coordinate work together.
"We can bring it up." He smiled, but it didn't feel real. "It's heavy, man. Tires are flat. Easier if you pull in." That's when I noticed we were not alone. There was another man, leaning against the fence at the back of the driveway. He hadn't been there a second ago, or maybe I just hadn't looked close enough. Dark shirt, arms crossed, standing like he was waiting for a cue. I kept my tone light. "No worries, just roll it up front, I'll grab the console." The porch guy didn't move. "You don't trust me?" Classic line. If you say yes, you step closer. If you say no, you're the problem. "Policy," I said. "I do all my trades up front." He looked back toward the fence. The second guy hadn't moved, but the tension in the air cranked up. Then a black sedan pulled slowly up the street, windows tinted darker than legal. It eased toward the driveway and stopped just short of my rear bumper. "Friend of yours?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, flat. That's when it clicked. They weren't here to trade. I'd boxed myself in. One guy in front, one at the fence, and now a car behind me. I kept my engine running. "Bike at Target tomorrow then?" I said, forcing a grin. The porch guy shrugged. "You're making this weird." The man at the fence moved, taking a step forward. The black car inched closer. I angled my wheels slightly, just enough to give myself a sliver of space. And then something subtle but terrifying. The porch guy tapped the top of my trunk with 2 fingers, like he was giving a signal. The man by the fence straightened, and I swear I saw his hand slide into his pocket. My chest tightened. If I waited another second, I'd lose my only exit. "Yeah, maybe I am," I said. Then I pressed the gas. Not hard, just enough to roll forward, nose toward the curb. The trunk popped open behind me, making it look like I might get out, but I had no intention of leaving the car. The porch guy stepped aside, still smiling, but tight now. Fence guy's hand twitched near his waist. The black car edged up, narrowing the gap. For half a second, I thought I saw the back passenger door crack open just an inch. That was all I needed. I fed the gas, bumped over the curb's edge, and scraped past the black car's bumper. Plastic on plastic contact, but I was through. The porch guy shouted, "You're making a mistake." I didn't look back. 2 blocks away, I pulled into a gas station under the bright white security cameras and shut the trunk. The Xbox was still there. Everything looked normal. But I knew what almost happened wasn't normal. At home, I reported the profile. By morning, it was gone, like it had never existed. I called the non-emergency line and gave them the address. The operator was polite, but I could hear the detachment in her voice like she'd heard versions of this before. Make sure you use safe exchange zones in the future. Yeah, no kidding. I've thought about that day more than I want to admit. Were they after the Xbox? The car? Me? I'll never know. Now I only meet in parking lots with cameras, sometimes even at the police station. If someone insists I come to their driveway, I don't argue. I just stop replying. Because here's what I learned. Danger doesn't always look like a guy in a ski mask. Sometimes it looks like a friendly smile, a clean driveway, and a dog in a profile picture. I didn't set out to shop on Facebook Marketplace because I wanted to. I did it because life demanded it. I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and my old Corolla had been doing its best. But anyone who's tried hauling a double stroller, sports gear, and grocery bags in a compact car knows that sooner or later something gives. For me, it was the day I had to say no to my son when he wanted to bring his scooter to the park. There just wasn't room. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and admitted to myself I needed a van. Dealerships were too pricey, and I wasn't about to let a slick salesman pressure me into payments that didn't fit my budget. Marketplace, though, it had promise. Regular people, regular cars, often cheaper. Riskier, sure, but I figured if I played it smart, I could make it work. I knew the model I wanted. A Toyota Sienna, 2012 or later, under 140,000 miles. Solid, reliable, roomy. I saved the filters, checked the listings every night after the kids went to bed. Most were scams you can spot instantly. Cars priced too low, blurry photos, descriptions copied and pasted. But one ad caught my eye. 2015 Toyota Sienna LE, $10,500. Moving, price to sell. The photos were clean. Silver paint, no dents. Interior looked decent. Gray cloth, 3rd row visible, nothing hidden. The seller's profile had a few reviews, even a comment from someone saying, "Great communication, thanks for the washer." The name was Luis. His profile pic was a fish he'd caught, which somehow made him feel more normal than the faceless avatars I usually saw. I messaged him, "Is the Sienna still available?" He replied fast, "Yes, need it gone this week." That urgency could mean 2 things. Either he really needed to sell, or something wasn't right. I messaged carefully. "Been available? Any warning lights? Can I see the 3rd row mechanism?" When you're going to strap in the 2 most important humans you know, your questions lose their apology. I ran it through a free check, and it came back as a 2015 Toyota Sienna LE. Silver, Fresno area. No accidents reported. My guard dipped a little. We agreed to meet Wednesday after work. He gave me his address and added, "Van's uninsured right now, can't drive it far. Come by my place, my wife will be home too." That part, "my wife will be home too," was calculated. I knew it immediately. It's a line designed to lower defenses. I told myself to stick to public place, daylight, and don't go alone. But Ruben, the one friend I could usually rope into these things, was stuck at work. I decided I'd just be extra careful. I told my sister where I was going, screenshotted the address, and sent her a knife emoji. She replied with 3 back. That's our family version of be safe. The neighborhood was nothing surprising. Tired duplexes, fences in need of paint, kids' toys in the yard. A man in a blue cap stood when I parked. He waved me toward the side yard. "Easier in the back," he called. "I'm fine here," I said, locking my car and keeping my keys in hand. "You're here for the van," he said, smiling. "Yes, the 2015 Sienna." He nodded. "It's behind the gate." I looked toward the driveway. There was a gate half open, a sliver of alley visible beyond. No van in sight. "Could you bring it out front?" I asked. He didn't answer that. Instead, he gestured toward the fence. "Actually, this one's better." I looked over and saw a white cargo van tucked against the side of the house. No plates. Primer patches on the paint. The kind of van people joke about not letting their kids near. My gut clenched. "That's not what was listed." "It's newer," he said smoothly. "Runs like new. Didn't have time to put it up yet. More space too. Good for kids." That word kids hit me wrong. He didn't know I had any. Unless he'd stalked my profile, which suddenly felt very possible. "I came for the Sienna," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "It's at my cousin's," he said too quickly. "We can drive there." I shook my head. "Not today." He smiled again. "At least sit inside this one, see if you like the feel." I took a step back toward the street. Not interested. But he didn't let it go. He followed, not close enough to grab me, but close enough to box me in with his presence. "What hours do you work?" he asked. "You live nearby." He didn't raise his voice, but every question felt like it was meant to corner me. "That's not important," I said. He moved a little faster, stepping between me and my car. "Just look in the back," he pressed. "It's clean. I cleaned it myself. New battery." "No," I said louder. I unlocked my car, slid inside, and shut the door. Before I could start the engine, he knocked on the window with his knuckles. Not hard, just enough to make it clear he was still there. "Don't be rude," he said softly. His eyes had lost the smile. I started the engine. He smacked the glass flat palm this time. My heart jumped, but I kept my face steady. I reversed hard, swerving toward the street. He stepped back, hands raised like "I'm not stopping you," but his eyes followed me all the way down the block. I pulled into a Walgreens lot and called my sister. "It was a white van," I said, my voice shaking harder than I wanted. "Not the one in the listing." He wouldn't let it go. "Report him," she snapped. So I did. I flagged the account on Marketplace, uploaded the screenshots, and called the non-emergency line. The operator was kind but blunt. "We can make a note, but since nothing happened, there's not much else." That's the catch with being cautious. You leave before something happens, which means there's nothing to prosecute. You get safety, but no closure. The next morning, the listing was gone. The profile Luis had vanished. I don't know what would have happened if I'd followed him behind that house. I don't know what was in the back of that van he was so desperate for me to see. But I know this. I trusted my instincts, and they got me out. Now, I don't meet anyone alone. I don't care how good the deal looks. If someone says, "Come around back," I say no, or I don't show up at all. Whatever was waiting for me that day in Fresno, it wasn't a family minivan. And I'll never forget how calmly he asked about my hours and where I lived. Like he was cataloging the information for later.
The 2026 Chevy Equinox is ready for your daily drives, weekend getaways, and everything in between. Plenty of cargo space, plus a big touchscreen that keeps all your tech right where you need it. It's more than an SUV. It's your Equinox. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
I've always been the kind of person who prefers order, clear systems, straightforward rules, everything in its place. It's probably why I got into IT. You troubleshoot a machine, know what the problem is, you fix it, and you move on. Simple, predictable. Life isn't always that neat, but my day-to-day usually is. And I'll start by saying this, I don't even really use Facebook Marketplace. I've maybe bought a keyboard once and a monitor from a guy across town, but nothing more than that. I usually stick to Amazon or Newegg or just pay the markup and go to Best Buy. Marketplace always felt messy. Too many people selling junk, too many scams. So when this happened, it didn't make sense. Not at first. It was a Tuesday night, one of those chilly Texas evenings with that dry air that makes your skin itch. I was home from work, heating leftovers, planning to binge a couple episodes of a show before bed. My neighborhood's quiet. Plano suburbs, ranch-style houses, trimmed lawns. The kind of place where you don't expect drama. Around 7:45 p.m., I heard a knock at the door. Not a light tap, 3 firm knocks. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked my phone, no texts. I pulled up the feed on my doorbell camera. There was a man on my porch, mid-40s maybe. Stocky build, shaved head, wearing a hoodie and jeans. He was holding a large cardboard box, taped shut. For a second, I thought maybe it was a delivery. But then I saw it wasn't the usual brown Amazon box. It was bigger, scuffed with no labels. I opened the door halfway, careful. "Can I help you?" He gave me this look like we'd already spoken. "Yeah," he said flatly. "You ordered these, the speakers. We agreed on Marketplace." I blinked. "No, I didn't." He smirked, adjusted his grip on the box. "You are. My full name, right?" I felt a twinge in my stomach. "Yeah, that's me." "Then these are yours." He nudged the box slightly, like I was supposed to take it. I shook my head. "I never ordered anything. You've got the wrong person." His tone sharpened. "Don't mess with me. You contacted me. We agreed. You still owe me." Then I noticed his foot wedged in the doorframe, just planted there like he wasn't planning to leave until I played along. I tried logic. "Look, I don't use Marketplace. Not really. I didn't buy anything. I don't know you." He leaned in, voice louder now. "You're telling me this isn't your address? That's not your name? Don't play stupid." My whole body tensed up. He knew my name, my address. Those aren't hard to find online, but hearing them from a stranger at your door is different. "Seriously," I said, trying not to let any nerves show. "Take them back. I don't want them." He didn't blink. "You already bought them. You owe me $200. He tried to push the box forward. I pushed the door back against his foot. "I'm calling the cops." That's when his eyes changed. Anger, frustration, something darker. I couldn't tell. He pressed harder, and for a second, I thought he'd actually force his way in. "Don't make this a problem," he snapped. I slammed my shoulder against the door, got it closed, and threw the deadbolt. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "911, what's your emergency?" "There's a man at my door," I said quickly. "He's trying to sell me something I never bought. He knows my name and address. He just tried to force his way inside. They told me to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and an officer would come." I stayed by the door, phone pressed to my ear, listening. For about a minute, nothing. Then, bang, a single pound on the door, hard enough to rattle the frame. "You think this is funny?" His voice growled through the wood. "I know you're in there. You can't just ghost me." I didn't answer. Another bang. Then silence. A minute later, the crunch of gravel. I peeked out the blinds. A dark SUV was pulling away, headlights sweeping across my lawn. The cops showed up maybe 10 minutes later. By then, the street was quiet. The box of speakers was gone too. The officer listened, jotting notes, nodding. "Could be a scam," he said. "These guys try intimidation, make you think you owe them money, force you to pay cash." "He knew my name," I said. "My address. How?" The officer shrugged. "Could have scraped it from somewhere. Online directories, old data leaks. Happens all the time." That didn't make me feel better. They checked around, flashlight sweeping the driveway. "Tire tracks," one officer noted. "He peeled out in a hurry." But nothing else. No cameras in the neighborhood had a good angle. They filed a report, gave me a card, and left. I locked every door and window that night. Sat on the couch with the lights off, watching the driveway. Every headlight that passed made me tense. I didn't sleep much. Days later, I kept replaying it in my head. The way he said my name. The way he insisted I'd agreed to something. What if it wasn't just a scam? What if he'd been testing my response, seeing how far he could push? I scrubbed my accounts, changed passwords, deleted old posts with personal info. But the thought stuck. How many people like him are out there, knocking on doors, holding boxes, insisting you owe them? And what if, instead of slamming the door, I'd hesitated? Now, I don't open the door unless I know exactly who's there. Delivery or not, package or not, I check twice. Because once you've heard a stranger say your full name and shove a box into your hands like it's already yours, you realize how thin the line is between safe suburbia and something much darker. And that line, it starts at your front door.
Grainger knows that if you're a school custodian, cleanliness is your top priority. That's why you can rely on Grainger for a range of cleaning products and equipment, from disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I've always loved antique shopping. Even though as a broke nursing student in Charleston, I had no business chasing aesthetic when I should have been buying groceries. But Marketplace made it feel like a game. Small, cheap treasures, quick pickups, little hits of satisfaction. That's how I found the mirrors. A listing for 3 oval gold mirrors. Delicate filigree frames, perfect for the hallway in my tiny apartment. The seller's profile said her name was Hannah, age 32, smiling in a beach hat. Reviews called her polite and a lovely buyer. I messaged, she replied almost instantly. Yes, still available. They're fragile, so best to pick them up inside. That line should have made me pause. Instead, I thought, daylight, public street, old couch in the photos. What's the risk? I texted the address to my roommate, Jess, like we always did for safety, and drove across the bridge into West Ashley on a muggy August afternoon. The house matched the vibe of the photos. Pale blue, slightly sagging porch, wind chimes tangled above the door. But when it opened, the woman who greeted me wasn't the 30-something from the profile. She was at least 70. Thin, cardigan sleeves rolled to the elbows in Charleston heat. "You're here for the mirrors?" she asked, smiling like she was trying it on. "I'm Hannah's mother." I hesitated but stepped inside. The entry smelled like lemon cleaner and mothballs. A small Wi-Fi camera sat on the hallway table. Red light blinking. She noticed me looking. "Porch pirates," she said. "You can't be too careful." We walked down a narrow hallway. No mirrors on the walls, just framed cross-stitch and family photos. She talked about her daughter being busy, about moving someday. Then, almost offhand, "You're about my daughter's size. You should try one of her dresses. There's a mirror in the bedroom." The words slid past me, but it didn't feel right at all. In the back room, boxes were stacked by category. Books, holiday, kitchen. A tall standing mirror leaned against the wall, but not one from the listing. Next to it, a garment rack held dresses under half-slipped plastic covers. She opened a closet, rustling bags. I wrapped them up. Just need a minute. Above us, another camera blinked red. This one was mounted high, angled at the hallway. I felt a knot form in my chest. "Maybe I'll grab my wallet from the car while you find them," I said. Her hand brushed my arm. "Stay. It's cooler here. Just visit a while." Her tone had changed. Less sweet, more insistent. I backed into the hall. I was on edge, but thinking fast, in a way that only comes with fear you're trying not to show. The living room felt twice as long as when I'd entered. The entry camera blinked again, then back to pulsing. Was someone watching live? She called after me, voice harder. Don't just walk away from me. I brought you inside. I didn't answer. I turned the lock, opened the door, and stepped out. My key fob beeped twice as I slid into my car. From the side mirror, I saw her silhouette in the doorway, framed by the porch light. The blinking camera light glowed behind her like an eye. In a gas station lot nearby, I called Jess on speaker. My voice was shaky. If you say I told you so, I'll block your number. Are you safe? She asked. Yes, but I told her about the old woman, the cameras, the way her tone snapped like a twig when I left. Jess didn't laugh. She just said, report it. I did. Flagged the listing for misrepresentation, uploaded screenshots, even emailed the police non-emergency line. By morning, the listing was gone. Hannah's profile was still there. Same beach hat photo, same lovely buyer reviews, but no items for sale. I bought thrift store mirrors 2 days later. Not perfect. Chipped and rectangular, but safe. I also made new rules. Porch pickups only, public places when possible, no it's inside exceptions. Jess and I created a code word, something stupid and random we'd never say otherwise, in case anyone ever tried to fake a connection through our phones. Sometimes I wonder if that old woman was really Hannah's mom, or if Hannah even existed. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was worse. I don't need to know. What sticks with me most isn't her face, though. It's the red blinking light of those cameras. Not knowing who was on the other end, watching me in that hallway. No mirror, no matter how pretty, belongs in exchange for a piece of your safety. Portland will spoil you with secondhand finds if you're patient enough. Estate sales, consignment shops. It's a city where vintage is less about fashion and more about survival. My name's Emily. I'm 24 years old, and I work as a barista here in Portland. Rent eats most of my paycheck from the cafe, so I live in thrift stores and online listings. I've always liked the thrill of the hunt. Finding a $12 floral dress that looks like it belongs in a Sofia Coppola movie makes the routine of oat milk lattes and 5 a.m. alarms feel worth it. My roommate Kenzie calls it my scrolling ritual. After a shift, I shower, throw on sweatpants, and sit cross-legged on the couch with a mug of tea and Facebook Marketplace open. It's relaxing. Most people scroll memes. I scroll dresses. I'm not careless. Portland is friendly, but it's not naive. I've seen enough stories about women lured into garages or basements on curb alert posts to know better. Kenzie and I even came up with a code word. If I text her that word mid-meet, it means call me right away and create an excuse to leave. Marketplace feels safer than Craigslist did back in high school. Profiles have names and faces, sometimes years of posts. Reviews. It tricks you into thinking you're dealing with an actual person, not a mask. That's why this story still bothers me. The ad looked solid. Closet clean out, vintage dresses, size small, bundle discount. 6 photos, all daylight. The black dress with covered buttons looked exactly my style. Simple 1940s-ish, something I could wear to work or to a date. A floral tea dress, a cardigan with a lace collar. The seller's name was Marianne. Her profile picture, a mid-40s woman with a wine glass, sitting on a patio. Normal. The rest of her marketplace posts were handbags, shoes, women's jeans. It felt like a real closet, not a scam. I messaged, "Hi, interested in the black button dress floral. Still available?" Reply came in seconds. "Yes, both still available. I'm home all afternoon. Inside pickup is easier because of the rain. I'll set up a mirror so you can check fit." The inside pickup part gave me pause. Usually people bring the stuff to the porch, but it was daytime, and Portland rain does make porch shopping a pain. I texted Kenzie the address Marianne gave me, plus vintage dresses, porch if I can, 10 minutes max. The address was off SE 82nd. Lots of small bungalows, chain link fences, moss-covered roofs. I parked a house down, another habit. I like to approach from an angle so I can see who's waiting at the door. The house was beige, with lace curtains in the window and a rhododendron gone wild in the front yard. A doormat said welcome-ish. I took a photo and texted it to Kenzie, then walked up. I knocked once. The door opened almost instantly. Too instantly. A man stood there. Beard, damp curls, jeans. Not the woman from the profile picture. "You here for the dresses?" he asked. I looked at him. "I messaged Marianne." He smiled. "Yeah, she's my wife. She had to step out. Stuff's set up in the back." Something about the way he said back made everything feel off. He didn't step outside. He didn't bring a dress to the door, just held it open. The entry rug was flipped on one corner and never fixed. I stood with one shoe inside, one outside. "If you can just bring the black dress out, I can pay cash on the porch," I said. "Rain's too heavy," he said, looking at the mist like it was a storm. "Better light in the back room. You can try them on." He gestured for me to follow. I should have left right then. But politeness is a trap I was raised on. I stepped inside fully. The living room to the left had a sagging couch, TV stand, and a framed watercolor of haystack rock. No dresses in sight. The man closed the door behind me. "Back this way," he said. The hall had family photos. A woman at a winery, someone with a dog, a couple at a birthday party. The woman could have been the profile picture 10 years older. It reassured me for half a second, then unsettled me. Were these real family photos or props? He opened the last door. Inside, a small room with no windows. A rolling rack of maybe 20 dresses, none I recognized from the listing. A mirror leaned against the wall. A footstool sat in the middle with a folded towel on top like a stage. "Here we go," he said, stepping aside like a doorman. "Better light in here." I stayed in the hallway. "Could I just see the black button dress?" He slid hangers with 2 fingers. The scrape of metal on metal set my teeth on edge. He pulled out a floral wrap dress I'd never seen. "This one's better. Try it on." I didn't take it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Kenzie. "You good?" "I don't try clothes on in private homes," I said. He forced another smile. She, my wife, likes when people use the back room. The way he kept referencing her made it feel rehearsed. I told him again, porch pickup only. Black dress or nothing. His smile thinned. He hung the dress back and stepped into the hallway, crowding the space so I had to move backward toward the door. "My wife just texted," he said, flashing his phone like a prop. "She says you can try whatever you want." Then he added, "You're being paranoid." That word landed like a dare. A manipulation. I said it flat. "If the black dress is available, porch. Otherwise, I'll pass." His jaw ticked. He finally opened the front door with a flourish, like he was doing me a favor. "Suit yourself." I stepped onto the porch. The mist felt like freedom. He called after me. "Don't be weird. At least try one." He went from all smiles to dead serious in seconds. I didn't answer. I walked fast, unlocked my car, and got in. He stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching. When I pulled away, he stayed in the doorway like a cutout. I parked a few blocks away under the brightest streetlights and texted Kenzie, "Safe." Then I sent our code word anyway. She called instantly. She didn't even crack a joke. "Report it," she said. I reported the listing to Marketplace. Profile photo female. Man answered, insisted on private room with no windows, refused porch transaction. I also emailed Portland PD, and I changed my rules after that. Porch or public place only. If the profile photo doesn't match the person who opens the door, the meet ends right there. I ask for a porch photo of the item before I even leave my house. People say, well, nothing happened, but something did. A man under a woman's name asked me to step into a room without windows. He told me my boundaries made me paranoid. That was enough. I still shop secondhand. I still like vintage dresses. But every time I scroll Marketplace now, I see that windowless room in my head. And every time I hang a new dress in my closet, I remind myself, I chose daylight. I chose exits. I chose to walk away. If these Marketplace stories made you rethink hitting message seller, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss the next scare, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if you think a weekend cabin sounds like a dream escape, this next video might change your mind. Click now to watch 4 scary weekend getaway horror stories. Because sometimes the worst part of a trip isn't packing. It's realizing you're not alone in that rental. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.